What a drag. What a drag. Hey guys, I hope you're well. Last night I was sitting here poking around this HW-16, and man, I kept finding problem area after problem after problem area. The build quality of this radio is awful, but it's weird. I first judged it by the printed circuit board, and that work is very nice. But the point-to-point wiring, just atrocious. There's no way this radio is working. Not for a long time. I'm going to sit down and try my best to show you a few things. The type of things you'll run into, and almost the type of things you'll expect to find in a Heathkit. Okay, hang on. Okay, guys, the first area I'm going to zoom you in on is right in here. This is the area of the electrolytic capacitors in the power supply, and I'm just going to make a comment on the build quality of this radio. Hang on. The first thing I noticed was just how sloppy the builder assembled this thing. Look at these resistors. They're just willy-nilly placed here and there. And that's one thing. That's sloppiness, but there's other areas that are potentially a lot worse. And I'm going to zoom you in on right down here. Hang on. It gets kind of hard to point with my pointer when you're zoomed in this far. I think I can pull it off right in here. Look how close those two leads are to each other. And you're zoomed way in, but they're a 0.5 millimeter apart. And they're also touching that tan wire. I've lost myself beneath them, this wire. And I guess usually it won't cause a problem, but many times it will. What if a wire is carrying high voltage or an RF signal? What if those parts get really hot? You don't want your component leads touching other component leads or other wires. I'm going to find another problem area for you. Hang on. Another thing I've noticed, the builder loved to layer one part on top of another. Look how this funky glass tube is a self-resetting breaker, believe it or not. That'll be going bye-bye. But I fixed most of them already, but parts running underneath parts, touching each other. That's terrible. That's bad practice. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Let me see. Let me look around. Hang on. And by the way, before I show you the next problem area, these filter capacitors, they all have to come out. They're all getting replaced. This whole section, I'm going to unwire. I'm going to take all the resistors off and unwire the dang thing, and I'm going to rewire it neatly. You know what I mean? It'll look nice, and it'll be so much easier to service once I'm done with it. But dang, let me show you something else I noticed. Hang on. I'm going to zoom you in this area right down here, okay? One moment. This builder of this radio did not like cutting off excess leads, the ends of the component leads after he soldered them. Do you see it? Look. Look at that lead. Look how long it is. Look at that. And not only that, but it's sticking between two other component leads. You know, it just so happens that those three leads are all connected together. But what if they weren't? You can't do that. You don't tuck leads between other component leads instead of cutting them off. God, hang on. Okay, next problem area I'm going to zoom you in on is this terminal strip right here, okay? It's a three-lug terminal strip. One moment. These terminal strips have a grounded lug. The one in the middle is ground on this one. And as you'll notice, they use the ground lug for grounding components and wires. You'll see that length of coax is grounded to that lug, as is that resistor. Problem is, let me grab that lug, that terminal strip. Problem is that either the builder never tightened it down or it's just loosened with time. How well do you think the radio will work with it like that? Hey, hang on. Hey guys, look at this. This isn't the builder's fault. Somebody's done some creative repair work in the past. Do you see it? Look at this resistor. Somebody's cut the leads off of both ends, then soldered a copper wire back on. Maybe they cut it out of there and said, oh shit, it's the wrong one. I cut the wrong one out. Or they cut it out and it was good. And they were so sure that it was bad, they cut the leads right next to the part and didn't have another one to install. I can show you another example of that. And it's right next door. Look at this capacitor. They cut the leads off right next to the cap and then got desperate and soldered wires back on. That's stuff I could see myself doing when I was, 15, 16 years old. For sure I'd have done it back then. I'd like to leave this resistor. Honestly, it adds character. Problem is, after I get this working right, I'm going to use it for a little bit and then sell it. Somebody will look at that and say, damn, what kind of shit you selling me, Charlie? What kind of junk is this? Yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. You have to tighten every nut, every screw on this thing. You always do with a Heathkit. And none more so than the hardware on the printed circuit board. Those screws are incredibly important. You can't even see them to the operation of this thing. People have no end to the misery until they, and you don't just tighten them. You should loosen the screw and nut. And if there's a star washer, turn it, play with it with your fingertip, then tighten it back down. I hope you're well. I hope you have a better tripod than I do. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye now. I forgot to mention, I already replaced these two electrolytics right here. They're for the negative 150 volt bias supply. And I've ordered all the parts for this radio and the Helicopters one. I was going to buy the correct capacitors and get axial leaded ones because they mount between this terminal strip and this one. Axial leaded means it has a lead coming out each end. They were over $3 a piece. I wasn't going to spend another $6 on this radio when I already had the right caps, but I had them in a radio leaded package where like this. So what do? You bring the negative lead down and tape it to the capacitor. And yeah, it works a treat. That's what I did. Right there. It's not the prettiest looking thing in the world, but it works, and it's safe. And as a aside, the original one that was in there, I checked it with my Heathkit cap checker, and it's a dual section 20 microfarad 200 volt capacitor. I got a slight response at the correct value for both of the caps inside there, but the leakage, that's a 200 volt cap right there, and it on the 25 volt leakage scale, this thing was more like a resistor than a capacitor. It does all kinds of leakage at 25 volts. So there you go. There you go. Gotta stop saying that. Yeah, 73.